Hello, it's Katie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we're going to be making a bracelet. We're going to be setting some Swarovski crystals inside, and it's going to be kind of like a half bracelet. This is the type of bracelet that I prefer, so that I can finish off with a nice chain and clasp, and it sits really comfortable. Now that is entirely up to you. You can make this longer if you want to. We're also going to be looking at a really nice neat finish on the ends, so like so. And we're going to be using some silver plated copper wire and Swarovski crystals to create it. So let's just take a quick look at what we're going to need. So the wire that we're using, I'm using all silver plated round copper wire from Jewellery Maker. So we're going to be using some 0.8, some 1mm and a 0.4 for the weaving. We're going to be using some 4mm Swarovski crystals. Now this is entirely up to you. You don't have to use bicones. These are bicones. You can use a round, as long as you're using something that is a consistent size, it will work perfectly. I'm going to be using a little bit of tape just to hold my wires to help me, and the tools I'm going to be using are some flush cutters, some chain nose or narrow nose pliers, and some 6-step baling pliers. Okay, so I'm just going to move all this out of the way and we will get on with our make. So the wires that we're going to need, the lengths and such, are the 1mm wires. Those are going to form the outer side, so this outermost side of our bracelet. These are about 25 centimeters long each. Then we've got two more 25 centimeter lengths of the 0.8mm wire, and then we've got a longer length of the 0.8mm wire. This is about 30 centimeters. If you want more detail here, as in these wraps, then just go a little bit longer with that wire, and kind of go with how you feel you want more detail or not. Okay, so now for the wrapping, just on this demo piece, I'm going to use a different coloured wire just so you're going to be able to see it a bit better. We will be working on this piece in a little while, which is obviously a lot prettier. So I'm going to use some bronze coloured wire just so that I'm hoping you're going to be able to see the wraps a little bit better. And we're also going to be using our bicones and a little bit of tape that I've just cut off, well, torn off, and got that ready to add when I need it. So we're going to start with one of our 1mm wires. Let's just move these to one side. So on the outer wire, so this is my, obviously the different coloured wire. So we're going to start wrapping a couple of wraps, just 1, 2. So I've popped my wire underneath and wrapped over twice. So 2 wraps onto this 1mm wire. Then I'm going to pick up one of my 25 centimeter lengths of 0.8. I'm going to pop that on top and wrap over there twice. So once, twice, and through, up in between those 2 wires. So I've got 2 wraps on 1 wire and 2 wraps over 2 wires, and I've come up in between there. Now I'm going to add my longest wire, that 0.8, that's a lot longer, and I'm going to position it so that this wire is sort of coming a little bit further over here. And the other thing that I'm going to do just momentarily is actually add one of my bicones onto that wire. This is so that I can space it out, so I know I've got the right spacing for the bead that I'm using. So my bicone's on there. I can move it away a little bit just so it's out of the way, and I'm going to come up over this wire, then up underneath that middle wire. Now just move your bicone out of the way slightly, and I just want to have one wrap, just one single wrap over and around that wire just once, just to space this out. Then I'm going to get my next 0.8 wire. I'm going to pop that one on. So I've spaced those out, so I've got that wider space, and it's perfectly set because I've put the bicone in there. And I'm going to wrap once over this wire. So I can just move that bicone out of the way just briefly and push that bicone back up, and it's sat in there absolutely perfectly now. So again, 2 wraps over 2 over one wire, 2 wraps over 2 wires, up in between those 2 wires, and then we're just going wrapping over once on the next wire up, which is the one that the bicone's on, and once over the 0.8 on top of that. Now we're going to add our last piece of wire, which will be your 1mm piece of wire, and we're going to wrap over twice, so it's going to match these wraps at this side. So we're going to wrap over those 2 wires twice, so you might need to just move that bicone a little bit just so you can get the wire underneath. So wrapping over those twice and then coming up in between those 2 wires. So now we've worked our way all the way up to the top, like so. Let's just get that to focus. There we go. Now you see why my finger there has been gripping, because I don't want to let go of all the wires. So this is what the tape is going to do. It's just going to make it a little bit easy and make you relax maybe a little bit more over letting go of the wires if you needed to. So we're just going to pop this little bit of tape just on this other side of these wraps, like so, just loosely, and then squish them down, and that's going to kind of retain where we need them to be. It'll stop any wires sliding also, and we can let go of it if we need to. So it just is a little bit of tape to aid you, and especially if you've not done a lot of wire wrapping before, it'll help you relax and maybe relax your shoulders a little bit and know that you can let go if you need to, because we do sort of get that kind of grip, that really tight grip when we're holding on to everything. So now working on that top wire, we're going to wrap over this 6 times. So we'd already come through and under, so through and under again, that's twice, 3 times, 4, 5, and then 6. So 6 wraps I've worked out for a 4mm bicone. That's going to give us, because we've got 6 single wraps in the middle and then we're going to have 2 on each side, and that's going to give us that space, that 4mm space for our bead to sit in perfectly. So now we've got those 6 wraps in, I know I can come underneath those top 2 wires and wrap over twice so it matches the opposite side. So wrapping over those twice, and then I can come up in between those wires and I'm ready to wrap over that middle wire again. Now the thing you need to remember is we're always going to wrap over the top of that middle wire. If you ever get into a situation where you think, oh, my wire's coming out the other way and it's going to wrap under, then you've gone wrong and you need to go back, because you always want to be wrapping over the top. So we've already got it spaced because we've got that bicone in there. So we're just going to come over the top of that middle wire, back up the other side of it, and push nice and tight, and wrapping once, just as we did when we went up this side, once over that 8mm wire there, and then we're in a position to do our 2 wraps at the bottom, and then we're in a position to do our single wraps on this last wire. And it really is just a repeat of that, so we'll just go through this once more. So 6 wraps on this one. This is where it gets a little bit awkward for me, just because I'm filming with a tripod in front of me because the wires touch my tripod, but I'll try my best. So that is 4 wraps, and 5 and 6. Now it's up to you the way you hold your wire. Whenever I'm making bracelets, I do tend to hold my wire this way, just because I can wrap and I can kind of support here and support here, but also I do it this way as well. So it's entirely up to you kind of how you feel about the way that you hold your wire. But just because you see somebody holding their wire in a certain way doesn't mean you have to hold your wire like that at all. So just work out what feels comfortable for you. So at this point, now I've got my wraps on there on that single wire, I'm going to pop on my next bead, which will fit in there perfectly, as you can see, and then I can go ahead and add my 2 wraps. So 1, 2 over 2, up in between, like so, and then I'm in that position to come over the top. So again, making sure we're coming over the top and not underneath. Oh, always over the top to wrap that central wire over the top, and then over onto the next 0.8 wire, just once on each of those, pushing them up, making sure they're nice and neat together, and then it's back to those 2 wraps once again. So 2 wraps over the top, 2 wires, and now you've kind of seen how it's building up. It actually builds up really quickly. So 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I know once I've added those 6 wraps, I can add my next bicone. So, and I know which one it is that I'm going to be adding it on because it's the one that stuck out longer than the rest. Okay, and then you're going to work your way back down. So I'll just bring that up to the camera and show you. Obviously this is in the wrong colour wire, but you should be able to see that a little bit better. I did try to film it with a silver wire, but it was pretty hard to see, so you should be able to see that there. So I'm just going to really quickly show you this one, which is the silver wire, and you can see that there. It really looks beautiful when it's all the same colour, but you can kind of mix your metals if you wanted to. So I've actually got 20 Swarovski bicones in there. Like I said before, it's entirely up to you the way you want to do it, whether you want it to be kind of this it's kind of half bracelet because it kind of finishes here and here, then I've just made this chain to go underneath. It's entirely up to you. Okay, so I'm just going to move a few things out of the way and get ready to create these ends. Okay, so we're going to look at finishing this off. So what we're going to do is we're going to add, so we're going to need an extra 2 bicones. We're going to add a bicone to the long one again. So it's sat in that little space there. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very, very slightly just pull that one away. So I've just pulled it away. I don't want it to be a big angle or anything. I just want it out of the way for a second. I want to trap that bicone in there. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is work on these wires here. So I just want them separated, not bent, just separated a little bit so I can just see exactly what I'm doing. So then I'm going to pop my pliers in on this 0.8 wire here. So just find a way in to grab it and then just pull it across. If you can't get your pliers in, you can kind of just pull it across and pull this side across. So those have actually crossed there in the middle. Now I'm going to find the finest nose pliers I can. So I'm going to use these ones because they come to a tip. Okay, now this wire that's on the top, I'm just going to grab right above where that central wire is. I'm going to straighten it out, okay? And then I'm going to do the same with this one. So I'm just going to grab this wire this side and straighten it up. So all I've done is made a little angle around that, so it's actually framing around that Swarovski now. So now I need to do the same with this side. So the 1mm might be a little bit stronger, so we might need to encourage it to come over a little bit more. And we just want it to go in line with these. So I'm just going to grab that and straighten it out. Okay, so and then I'm just going to make a tiny little angle there, just like I did at the other side, just so I can bring that over and then grab this one and straighten it out. Okay, again, just making sure we've just pulled that one, this middle one, back out of there a little bit. Okay, so those are all kind of pulled together and it's looking nice and neat around there. Now what we need to do is wrap this one around. So you need to find a way that you can, that it feels comfortable. So you need to be able to hold these. So I'm going to take my pliers and I'm holding all 4 of these flat. Okay, don't worry about them at this side, just so that they are flat and together like so. Okay, so now I'm going to take this wire, okay, and I'm going to bring it around the side. So I'm going to bring it this way. Okay, now I want really nice close wraps around here. So I'm going to bring this as together as I can, holding everything as together as I can, and I'm going to bring this over the top. Okay, at this point you can take that wire off there and give this a little squish just to bring this together. Okay, again pop your pliers in this side, and we're going to bring this around again. So I've now come all the way around and I've wrapped around all these 4 wires with that central wire that we had. Okay, I'm going to give that little squish so that I'm keeping it nice and as tight as possible. Okay, so I'm holding this and supporting it from behind and pushing it down the back, and I've brought that wrap around in line with the other ones. And again, I'm just going to give it, I'm not squishing it, so I'm like squeezing it really, really tight. I'm just kind of tapping it together and making sure it stays nicely together. Now I'm going to do the same again. So I've got 3 wraps, all nice and neatly. Don't rush this. All nice and neatly together. You can see those there. And give that a little squish, not a squash, just squish. And again around. Okay, now I've got 4 on there, and just assess the length that you've got the other end. Make sure you're going to be able to do the same amount at the other end, and then I'm just going to bring that around the front, give that a little squish. And what I want to do is I want to cut it on the front, so it's just kind of going to sit more on the side there. Okay, so I'm going to kind of encourage it to come around the side. So I'm going to cut it while the wire's on the front there. So I'm going to cut it nice and neat and short right up to there. And then I'm going to use my pliers just to kind of encourage that to kind of sweep around the corner. So I'm just using the tip of my pliers just to kind of bring that around, so we're nice and neat and together. Okay, so these wires, all we want them to do is sit next to each other. Okay, so just sit nicely next to each other and in the right order, so not crossing each other or anything. Okay, so that's nice there. It doesn't matter that they've splayed out a little bit, but what we're going to do now is we're going to cut these wires. So I want to cut them. I'm going to be using my 6-step baling pliers. I'm going to use them on this second size here, so I know I've got a nice size to be working on because it's 4 wires. We don't want it too small. So I'm going to cut this to, it's probably just less than an inch. I can take more off if I want to. It's probably about, that's about a centimetre. We're going to take it a little bit shorter, so around about there. Okay, so nice and short. So moving everything out of the way. So I've got my little piece cut here. Now I'm going to pop my pliers in. I'm going to use that one that I said, making sure my wires are all nice and straight. I'm going to make sure they're lined up, nice and smooth and straight. And I want to hold them really firmly, so I'm turning all of these together at the same time. So turning and pushing, and then reposition my pliers up a little bit so I can bring that loop right in there. And now I've got a nice neat loop at the very end there, and you can see I've got a really nice, let's just get this to focus, I've got a really nice neat finish at the end and that nice loop. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and finish this side, and I'll join you back just to create a little bit of a clasp. So just one point to consider before you actually finish off that other end is to actually shape the bracelet before you turn these ends, just because the bracelet, the wires will pull through a little bit just as you shape them, because you're changing the shape. So just before you actually, you can finish all this bit, and then what I would do is do what I've done here and shape it around, and then you will be in a position where you can cut your ends after it's shaped around. And then using your pliers you can then hold it nice and firm, just like you did the other side, and turn those ends in like so. Okay, so that's this part done, and like I said, this is just like mine. It's like the half bracelet, and then we're just going to add a little bit of chain. So I've just made some chain using sort of this slightly larger mandrel on my baling pliers, just because we know we're going to have to get through quite a large hole on there. So I've just made a change just by wrapping those around and then just snipping those. You can use pre-made jump rings, that's absolutely fine. It's entirely up to you. So I'm just going to open up my little bit of chain and pop this through. So this one, because it's going through quite a few loops, might be a little bit more difficult to get through and fasten. But there we go, that one's fastened. So making sure that it's fastened as closely as possible. And then I'm just going to pop my shorter piece of chain on one side. This is the side where I'm going to attach my little bit of clasp. So opening that ring up and popping this on here and closing these up again like so. So now we're going to look at just making this little bit of a clasp here. So I've just got a little bit of my 1mm. So if you're making a clasp, I wouldn't go any lower than a 1mm in gauge, just because you want that strength there. Okay, so we're going to start with using, I'd probably go for a round nose plier and go for like the smallest round nose pliers you can find, just to make a little loop just for the very end. So right on the tip there, we're just going to make the smallest loop possible, which is not very small when you're dealing with a 1mm, but that's why it's easier to use the smallest loop possible. And make sure that loop will pass through your chains in your chainmail. So now we've got that little loop made, I'm going to look at, just moving some of these out of the way for a second. So I'm going to look at my baling pliers and I'm going to choose this 6mm size to make the actual hook part of my clasp. So that's going to be my hook. So I've bent it round in this opposite direction. So I've got my little hook made there. Now what I'm going to do is make my little wrap loop that's going to attach onto my bracelet. So you could do this before you added the chain, it's entirely up to you. So I'm going to make this a 90 angle degree away from my loop there. Then I'm going to go in with the smaller size of my mandrel here, and I'm going to bring this all the way around, and I'm going to bring this underneath. So I've brought this underneath there. Now this is still open, so I can attach this to my chain. So I'm going to slip my chain in there. So I might just have to open this up just slightly, just for it to kind of pop inside there. There we go. And then I'm just going to take my pliers and hold that loop, that little bit of a loop there, and then just give this a couple of wraps. Doesn't need many because it's a 1mm, it's nice and strong. So a couple of wraps around, and then I can snip this off like so, and then just spend a few seconds just making sure that this is all nicely nipped in. Okay, like so. Now I've got my clasp ready to attach to the other part of my chain, so I'm going to pop it in around about there. Then I can pop a little charm on the end if I wanted to. This is just so that it's more adjustable, so I've got my chain there. But this one is now complete and ready to wear. So there we go, our two bracelets ready to wear. Really comfortable to wear. I've worn that this whole demonstration and it's really comfortable. So thank you very much for watching my demonstration today. Pop me a like underneath if you've enjoyed the video. If you want to see more, please subscribe. I'd love to see you again watching my videos. Thank you very much for your time today. I hope you enjoy making some beautiful bracelets. Take care. See you later.